Not into long podcasts. Don't worry. We've got bite-sized clips just for you. This is CWN Clips. Please don't forget to subscribe. You're talking about Vandana Shiva, the environmentalist from India. To a precisely probably more than a page in detail about her thoughts, and it's on the should peasants stay poor in that chapter. Her argument is when you because I think this is also I wrote to you, when you measure biodiversity, you can grow more food. And if you like to feed the world, we should grow more diverse crops. If you want to starve the world, then you grow monoculture, like soy or corn, where the 90%, as you also mentioned in the book, of soy and corn production globally goes to biofuel and animal feed. So which is the main reason also still hunger in underdeveloped countries. I think I have sent you the report, the global report on food crisis, GRFC, released in May, which still says it's actually doubled from 2016, while it is actually tripled from the earlier when they did triples of the number of people facing acute hunger since 2016, and a doubling since 2020 till now. So do you feel the commoditization, or probably more of these monoculture and trying to use those to biofuel, or probably for the industrial processing, is reducing the funds or the need for humanitarian aid, where
Yeah, no. The report that you referenced doesn't attribute the food insecurity or the hunger that they report on to monoculture or to a decline in crop yields or to the failure of agriculture. They point instead, most often,
the crisis
to violent conflict. And that's not an agricultural problem. That's a social problem. If you look at where people are hungry in the world today, it's acutely hungry. It is in places like Somalia or
Yep.
Sudan or Yemen
Yemen.
or the Democratic Republic of Congo. These are societies torn apart by violent conflict. And farmers in the countryside can't be productive if their crops are being burned by militia warriors who want to deny the food to their adversaries, or if they themselves are physically insecure because of the fighting surrounding them, or if all the young men are kidnapped to be soldiers. This destroys agriculture. It destroys the exchange of agricultural goods, and it leaves societies vulnerable to acute hunger and even starvation. But that's not an agricultural problem. That's a human conflict problem. There are other people in the world who are hungry, not because of violent conflict, but because their governments have either taken away the rights of individuals to grow food and to own land and to exchange things in the marketplace. Countries like North Korea, which is a police state, a fascist communist police state run by a monarch. This political system is a calamity, and they had a terrible famine there in the 1990s, and they've been food insecure ever since. Or Cuba, another Marxist state that does not allow private markets to operate, and they're now barely feeding their population, mostly on imported food that still has to be rationed. If they were to permit Cuban peasants to own their own land and to sell their food into a marketplace, they wouldn't be struggling that way. And then there's Venezuela, also governed by a single party Marxist regime, which drove its economy. When the price of oil collapsed, their economy collapsed, and they couldn't import any more food, and people, in order to get food, had to become refugees and flee to Colombia. So there's a lot of hunger out there, but very little of it has anything to do with the underperformance of agriculture. It's the underperformance of governments in these failed states,
True.
or it's war fighting among armed ethnic groups, rival ethnic groups in civil war states. That's the source of most acute hunger in the world today.
No, you're right. I think the report also alludes to, in terms of the crisis, the continuous issues, but even so, what you're saying is monoculture is not or trying to. I mean, the production of crops is fine, but then the 90% of production is going to more of biofuel or the animal feed is not a bigger concern, or do you see that as probably we should reduce that and divert it to where there is a real need of food, or from an import and export or global production standpoint?
Well, monoculture is a misunderstood word. If you have the same crop in a single field, that's considered a monoculture. But if you go from corn in one year in that field to soybeans in the next year, that's a crop rotation. It's no longer a continuous monoculture. The alternative to excessive monoculture is crop rotation, and conventional farmers do that all the time. Most cornfields in the United States this year were planting soybeans last year. So it's not as though we're driving the agricultural system in the ground by only planting one thing. And Vandana Shiva gets something else wrong. She said that the wheat and rice varieties that were introduced by plant breeders in India in the 1960s and the 1970s were built on a dangerously narrow genetic base. And she thought that eventually they'll prove unsustainable. Well, they haven't proved unsustainable. Crop production in India, rice and wheat production in India, has increased dramatically since she wrote her book in the early 1990s. So her prediction of a collapse was wrong. And it's because her understanding of a broad genetic base was wrong. She didn't realize that most of the new varieties of wheat and rice had been developed by plant breeders using selections from a dozen or more different varieties. So the genetics of a single new rice plant contained the genetic traits of dozens of pre-Green Revolution rice plants, and that conferred resistance to pests and diseases of many different kinds. And so Indian agriculture hasn't undergone any of the collapse that she was so firmly predicting 35 years ago.
This is just a glimpse of one of the many conversations we've had in this channel. If you found this thought-provoking, please don't forget to subscribe and explore more insights from unfiltered voices and the real-world experts. And please don't forget to like and share this video to as many people as possible. It keeps us going. See you in the next one.